Hey, everybody. Adam Phillips here for Dynamite Entertainment. I'm here with writer Dan Abnett, who is working on so many things these days, including our series, Immortal Red Sonja. And do you say Sonya or Sonia, Dan?
I say Sonia, but then I'm British, so who knows? So
Sure. You're closer to the lands she comes from, I suppose.
That's right. Yeah, they're just up the road.
Currently in the series you're writing, more so.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we get into it, everybody please hit the like and subscribe buttons so you are aware every time there's a new Dynamite video on our YouTube page. And yeah, we'll get into it a little bit, talk about. So Immortal Red Sonja number 4 is coming out in a couple of weeks in July, and July 20th, I believe it is. And we're getting close to the end of the first story arc, which that comes in issue 5 in August. Andy, if you could set us up for the big conclusion on that before we talk about the next thing.
I can. It's I've tried to be quite cunning with Immortal Red Sonja, to be honest. In as much as there is a big ongoing story that's running through the issues, which I'll talk about in a second. But obviously, one of the things that inspired the series was the fact that she's wearing the chainmail shirt again, as she did in her very first appearances in comics.
Yes.
So there is a deliberately retro feel about where we're taking the series. And one of the other things that I wanted to do with the series, which again is a nod to the way comics used to be, is that almost every issue, and this will continue, every issue is its own story. So every issue has a beginning, middle, and end. She gets into a situation, she resolves it, she comes out of the other end.
Yes.
Now they add together to tell a bigger story, but this is not a series where there are huge cliffhangers where it's like, oh, tune in next month to find out what happens. There are a series of vignette adventures in the way that Conan and Red Sonja used to be told, where there is a specific threat or danger in each issue. And that's proving to be lovely. So every issue has got this kind of self-contained feel. So yes, issue 5 is climactic in as much as she makes some major discoveries about the quest she's on. And issue 6, therefore, is going to be a major restart where she's getting closer and closer to the truth that she's been following and has by then acquired several allies, also several adversaries. So there is a momentum building through the series. But the series, really defiantly, I've made these sort of individual adventures like those classic Frank Thorne stories or Barry Windsor Smith stories, where this month it is this story and it's got a particular title and it does a particular thing. And the for those who don't know about it, the kind of wrinkle that we've added to this Red Sonja title to differentiate it from the others is that she's sort of exploring mythology, most specifically the Arthurian Celtic mythology, which one associates with the British Isles, but actually is broader than that. It's very sort of European and everything. It's so it's not specifically Red Sonja in ancient Britain, but it's Red Sonja in that kind of quasi-fantastical era of mythology that one might see in, for instance, a movie like Excalibur or something like that. Right. So there is a very Arthur-like king, and there are very Arthurian knights, and there is a round table, and there is a sort of Merlin figure, and they have names that are sort of like those things, enough to be identifiable, but they are not deliberately those things. In fact, in many respects, they are very sort of Old English or Anglo-Saxon versions of those names. So it's almost like she has gone into the real story from which we get the modern day legends, and that she's participating in that. And I try to set up the idea that actually the idea of a king with a round table of knights who protects the land, and then something happens and, you know, the sword comes out of the lake and goes back into the lake, and all this is actually a recurring cycle in this realm. And there are sort of recurring golden ages which last for a few decades, and then it's a time of darkness, then it returns again. So it has that kind of mythological structure to it. And really, Red Sonja is wearing this chainmail shirt, which she can't take off. It's a curse, and she is obliged to try and help restore the kingdom. Virtually everything in this realm is enchanted and cursed, and I'm talking about every pebble, every stone, every pond, every tree, not to mention all the people. So that almost every story, she's encountering someone who's got some kind of weird thing sort of in the absolutely in the spirit of those classic Arthurian stories, where she meets someone and it sort of becomes a riddle, because the curse is going to trap her somehow. And she's not only going to fight her way out, she's got to cunningly figure her way out of how do you defeat the curse. And that's one of the things she's been learning through the first few stories. And those curses apply to her, because obviously she's got a cursed chainmail shirt. She also wins early on, I think it's issue 2, she gets herself a sword, which is given to her by a spirit in a lake. Arm comes out the lake with a sword, so she's got this magic sword. Fantastic. Except the sword itself is enchanted / cursed. Yeah. So it has its limitations. And if she uses it wrongly, and it is also a problem to her. So at one point she tries to get rid of it by throwing it back in the lake, and it keeps coming back, and it's like, I'll get rid of this thing. So we and she are learning the rules, but nothing is as straightforward as it seems. So she sees something, she goes, that's my objective. She gets into it and she goes, oh, wait a minute. If I do that, I'll die. So I can't do the thing I came here to do. I've got to do something clever and sort of sideways instead. So she's learning these ropes. And issue 5 has a particularly dramatic example of that, where she actually is going to get the opportunity to, as it were, break her own curse and free herself. But she realizes that the consequences of doing that could be worse than sticking with better the devil you know than sticking with what she needs to do. So she's got to make this big decision. And she's also going around. So in issue 4 and 5, she sort of rescues one of, for the sake of this interview, one of Arthur's knights, one of Arthur's great knights, who is a recognizable figure, but he's not quite the version we know from myth. She rescues him and sort of breaks his curse, and he's now become her sort of her sidekick. Early on, for instance, she encountered the Green Knight, who is this amazing enchanted figure of sort of vengeance and nature. And presuming him to be an enemy, she attacks him with the enchanted sword she's got. And of course, she lops off his head. He picks his head back up, because that's what the Green Knight does, and goes, we'll meet again. And she realizes that she's broken one of the rules. So she's also got people like the Green Knight hunting for her to have payback for the things that she's done. So what I'm saying is, I'm having a wonderful time plundering ancient mythology, particularly that kind of Arthurian mythology, and trying to find kind of twisted ways of retelling bits of it or representing bits of it. So you go, oh, I know what this is, but it's not quite doing what I thought it would do, because it's not quite the way the original story worked. It's like everything's been blighted by this curse. And also trying to honor the early days of Red Sonja as a comic in terms of its structure and the type of adventures. So that's my sales pitch, and that's why you should grab it and buy it. And the great thing about it is, by all means, if you haven't read it yet, join on issue 6, because it is a kind of big benchmark sort of start of the next big thing that's happening. But the wonderful thing about Immortal Red Sonja, is that you can pick it up from any issue, because every issue is the start of a new thing. Every issue starts a new story and brings you in and reiterates and sets you up.
Right. Adds to the overall story, but it definitely has that feeling of being a complete story that's satisfying. I just read the issues this week, so I could know what I'm talking about a little bit in this interview. And it's also really great. You're working with some terrific artists. You had Alessandro Miracolo, Emiliana Pina did one, Luca Calandria did one, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I know with issue 6 is supposed to be Alessandro Rinaldi, I believe. Mm-hmm. So really a real terrific bunch of artists, all bringing their own, perspective on the character and on the adventures, and it makes it a lot of fun.
They've all got a lot of energy to them, and one of the things we tried to get everybody to do is to capture that spirit of the early days of the strip. So I met the touchstones like Frank Thorne, obviously, on Red Sonja, and Barry Windsor Smith on the Conan and drawing Red Sonja in the early days, but also to inject into the setting this unique setting, that sort of John Borman's Excalibur feel to things. So sort of impossibly heavy plate armor on something, spikes, and just that sort of darkness of a sort of long, dark European winter where all the woods are haunted by terrible things, and it's got that kind of bleak yet incredibly intoxicating feel to it.
Sure.
I'm doing a great thing like that. I have been going through all sorts of reference that I can find to show them this sort of stuff and go, look, this sort of thing, capture this sort of spirit of things. So,
but
touch wood, that's gonna keep going.
Right, but that's the setting, and I just want to say also the interplay between Red Sonja herself and this cursed, chainmail that she has to wear. That's, I may as well say, because we're several issues in, it's talking to her and giving her guidance and things, and is not 100% trustworthy. It's an enormous amount of fun.
Well, thank you. Yes, that was the fun thing. It's always great to have somebody that the main character can talk to, even in what appears to be a solo book. And yes, this chainmail she's wearing is possessed by one of the spirits, and it's possessed by a curse of one of these spirits. Right. So it's unclear whether it's, for a start, whether it is who it say it is, or anything like that. Whether it can be trusted. It's incredibly close with the information it gives. So it'll give her some information, but not quite enough. From time to time. But it means that there is this essentially banter between her and this unseen person, but only she can hear it. So it's slowly driving her crazy. And it makes people think that she's crazy because she's just, talking to her. Right. And one of the ways I set that up is that in the very first issue, she is clearly talking to somebody and having a conversation that we can't hear, because in the first issue, we don't hear the shirt.
Yeah.
All we hear is her talking. We go, oh God, she's gone mad. And then in the second issue, we actually present it from the point of view of the shirt narrating her story. And then she starts saying, can you stop doing that? It's like, it's really annoying you going on and on and on all the time. So there's a lot of fun to be had with that. And I love it's got a character like its personality, I suppose, is a little bit something like a character like, I don't know, Loki or something like that, where it's a real trickster. It will give her information. And then it's like, if you told me all of that, I would have had a better chance of surviving, because you withheld certain things that would have been really good to know up front. Right. And again, that plays into the whole thing that everything is about the, as it were, these sort of magical rules and curses that you've got to get everything just right, and anybody will catch you out. And in that very first issue, she encounters somebody who essentially is trying to trap her by getting her to either say or not say something. And she finally figures it out by working out the one question that she hasn't been asked, that anybody else would have automatically asked her. But with the fact that this character hasn't asked her that thing, she goes, oh, this is a trap. You didn't want to know the answer. And therefore, she is able to sort of defend herself. So there's lots of sort of cunning things like that, which are very folklore, very, very folklore. That's it's always that thing. It's like, there's so many myths and legends about, sort of pacts with the devil and stuff like that, where unless you do it to the letter of the law, you know what I mean, that the devil will find a way of cheating you on a deal. So that's the kind of spirit we're going for.
Fantastic stuff. A lot of fun. And we're going to show the covers right now. Everybody, please, you should go to your local comic shop, tell the person behind the counter that you have got to get in on this series if you haven't already, because it's really worth sticking around for. And issue 6, like we said, comes out in September, and it's the start of the second half of the quest, and new things are going to be unfolding. Dan, thanks so much for your time today. And
my pleasure.
We'll talk soon again.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.